Hey guys, it is CC Garland here with Wholesaling House's Future Alliance. I hope you're having a great day because we are talking about a fantastic and great topic, and that is qualifying your zip codes. Now, it may not seem as exciting as I'm making it seem right now, but trust me, it is. When you're starting off, knowing where to target and knowing where to focus your marketing dollars is extremely important. It doesn't matter if you're spending $10, $20, $30,000 on direct mail. If you're fishing in the wrong pond where there aren't any fish, you're essentially going to be wasting all of your money. I'm going to go through the exact process that I have used for several years. I still do this to this day. And this will actually help you concentrate your marketing efforts on a specific area. Now, if you're just starting out, this is something you really want to pay attention to because let's be honest, most people that start off wholesaling are starting off on a budget, and say you only have $1,000 or $500 like I did whenever I first started to put towards direct mail. You want to go wherever the most targeted and the most highly motivated sellers are. And this process will basically show you how to do that from start to finish. So let us get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is to go to List Source. And the great thing about doing this in List Source is that you don't even have to buy this list. We're basically just using List Source as an analysis and research tool. So I'm going to show you exactly what I would do if I was starting off and had a limited budget and I was starting off wholesaling. So the first thing I would do is log in or create an account if you don't already have one. So I'm already in my account here. You're going to want to click create your own. And the criteria we're going to use is this. We're basically trying to filter down how many people have bought properties for cash in a particular zip code over the last 12 months. Why do we want to do this? We want to do this because if you're able to target where your cash buyers are, guess what? It's going to make it that much easier when you have a deal to move it. So you don't want to target an area that has one cash sale in the past 12 months. Renovators and rehabbers aren't working there. But let's just say there's an area in your town that has 500 cash sales. I would focus all your effort, if not most of it, in that particular zip code. And I'll show you how I would go ahead and sort my zip codes out as if I'm targeting a list for the first time as a beginner. So you can do this by getting cash sales from the MLS. However, I know whenever I first started, especially being an introvert, I didn't like talking to people and I didn't know what I was talking about at the time. So if you don't have MLS access and you can't get access to a realtor, this will get you about 99% there. Is this the most accurate way to pull cash sales? No. But based on the criteria and the information we have from List Source, it'll get us about 99% there. So I hope that makes sense to you all. And I hope you understand the importance of pulling your cash sales. And we're going to go zip code by zip code in the particular area we are targeting right now. So I'm actually going to do Alameda County because Ethan and I just picked up a joint venture partner over in that particular area. So I'm able to kill two birds with one stone, analyze the zip codes for him, as well as show you guys how I would go about the process. So this is an actual area that I'm looking to target right now, which is great. And the first thing you're going to want to do is determine your geography or zip code. So by default, that's the first area where List Source wants you to sort of input some values in. And as a side note, unfortunately, in 4 states, you are not able to pull data in List Source. But there are other tools out there, Investor Title Toolbox, Rebo Gateway, and you can always go to a realtor. But if you need help and you're in one of these states, just let me know and I will point you in the right direction. But for everybody else, I would say 99% of the people in our group, you will be able to pull your cash sales doing this. So that's a little side note here in case you aren't getting any counts. That is why. So we are going to click zip code. And we are going to input the primary zip code where you're located or you want to target, right? So let's just say you're in an area and you live on a golf course. You probably won't want to start out there as a zip code. I mean, you can, but I'll actually show you all of the zip codes that you can find, because you need to find all of the zip codes in a 30-mile radius. You may know them off the top of your head, but I guarantee there are some that you're looking over. You're going to want to qualify all of these. So how do we find those? We're going to go to Google and we are going to find a tool or go to a website called SearchBug, and it's going to be radius search. So I'm just going to SearchBug radius search, and here it is right here. And what this allows us to do is actually find all of the zip codes in a particular radius from the one we're inputting. So I'm doing Alameda County, and a zip code there is this one, 94502. I'm going to type in a verification code here, 7829998, just to show that we're not a robot. Oops. And the radius I'm going to use, since this is in California, I'm going to use 30 miles. You can go up to 50, but I would say once you're over 50 miles, you're probably in a different market. It's probably a little bit too far for you to drive in a day's travel, unless you're in a really rural area where everything's spread out. And in that case, I wouldn't suggest targeting anything there. I would virtually wholesale, because you most likely aren't going to get any deals. And what we have here, guys, is a list of all of the zip codes in a 30-mile radius from our subject zip. So the first one is going to be the one we inputted. So it's going to have a distance of 0. And here it's going to list all of the areas in ascending order. So going from the closest to the furthest away. Now, if there's a lot of zip codes here and you start getting pretty far away in areas where you wouldn't really target, so say Santa Clara is a bit too far away for our joint venture partner, which I think it is, I might go 15 miles out, just because the population is a lot larger there than a lot of areas where I'm located in the Southeast. So I may be able to get 50 zip codes just in a 10-mile radius, which that actually looks like the case. So what I actually do is I outsource this. I create a video like this and I outsource this to my virtual assistant to do. I suggest you doing it on your own a few times, because as you go throughout the process, some light bulbs are going to go off. Some areas that you think you should target, you probably shouldn't. Some areas you think are doing really well and a lot of investors are located, they might not be there. So doing this exercise is really eye-opening, and it will help you understand your market, especially if you're starting off. So this is what I would do. I would take this zip code right here. I would create a spreadsheet that has your zip code, cash sales, median sales price, DOM, which is days on market, and just put some notes there. I'll later in the video, I'll discuss what you should put in your notes area. But for now, let's focus on the zip code and the cash sales. So I'm going to just copy the zip here. I'm not going to do all of them, but I'm going to do enough just so you understand the process. So I'm going to probably get 5 zip codes. Now, one important thing to note is if you're seeing a population of 0, this is a postal zip code, meaning this is just for post offices. So skip over those that have 0, right? I would skip over all of these. And I would just focus on the ones that have a population over 5,000 people. So I'm going to get this one right here, 94621. Okay. 94501. I'm going to get 94601. Oops. And we'll do one more, and we'll do 94603. We'll put that there. Like I said, I would do all of them. Now, the whole exercise could take you upwards to maybe 3 with all these zip codes 4 or 5 hours. But like I said, you will learn so much about your market if you go through that practice. And I've done this in several markets, and I usually do this if I'm entering in a whole new area, but there aren't many areas in the United States that I'm not very familiar with. But if I do want to get in-depth analysis of what's going on, I might do this exercise myself. So what we're going to do here is go to list source, and we are going to copy in this first zip code here. And I'm going to add this to list source. And after that, I'm going to enter in some criteria. So what criteria am I going to enter? First, I'm going to only show single family residences, because most of the properties that we're going to be targeting and most of what the rehabbers want are going to be single family residences. Now up north, you may be targeting townhomes, condos, duplexes, triplexes, and quadruplexes. You can include those, right? It's fine. However, I do think if you use single family residences, you're going to basically see the same amount of properties being renovated if you were to add your duplexes, quadruplexes, and triplexes. So basically, even if you add those zip codes or take them away, the numbers are going to be the same. But just keep in mind, if you are qualifying those like duplexes, quadruplexes, and triplexes, make sure you do that for every single zip code. We want to be comparing apples and apples here. So we're going to go to property type. And we are going to go down to single family residence, SFR, and we are going to add that. Great. Now what we need to do is add in an equity filter. So basically, this equity filter will tell us that it essentially was bought for cash. So if you see a house that was bought within the last 12 months and it has 100% equity, and the owner is out of state, or they're absentee, meaning the mailing address is different from the property address, do you think that's a regular homeowner that bought a loan? No, that is an investor. Like I was saying earlier, this isn't the most exact method. We could basically use common sense and determine that these properties are cash properties, right? The numbers may be off a little bit, but it's pretty accurate compared to using the MLS. This is the next best thing. So what I like doing here is doing 99 to 100 for the equity and clicking add. The other thing we're going to put is a filter for the last market sale date. And we're going to go for the last 12 months. And I'm going to click add. And the last filter I'm going to use is an absentee filter. And we want to include homeowners that have properties that are both in-state owners and out-of-state owners. And we want to exclude trust-owned properties because these are basically people that own them in the family, right? So we're going to exclude those. I'm not saying that trusts aren't investors, but it's usually a group of people or like a family. Corporate-owned properties, we are going to say no preference. The reason why we're doing this is because we want to show both LLC owners and mom and pop investors. Now, I would think that most investors would put their properties in LLCs. That's not the case. Some people own over 100 properties and they just list it in their name. They close the property and they just put it in their name. So that doesn't make them less serious than somebody who uses an LLC. It's just personal preference. So we're going to do both. We're going to do LLC owners and people that are using their own names to buy properties. And guys, that is all of the criteria. Let's go ahead and just double check here. So we have our equity filter, our last market sale date, single family residence, and this mailing address complete. That's automatic, so don't disregard that. Just keep that there. Absentee owned in-state, absentee owned out of state, and we're excluding trust owned properties. So we have everything here. So as you see, as we were adding these filters, it reduced the number of properties. So in some areas, you're going to have 0 cash sales. In others, you may have 100. It all depends. But this is why you want to do this exercise, because imagine if you just said, oh, well, this area is a nice place to target. Really? If it's a nice place to target, go ahead and go through the exercise and determine that, because you could have been completely wrong by listening to somebody else or listening to a realtor or listening to your mom or dad. The numbers don't lie, guys. So you're going to want to go through this exercise to make sure you're actually focusing your marketing efforts in the right location. So what we're going to do is go on our list here, and we are going to click 1. The next thing we're going to want to do is actually find the median sales price. You can do the median listing price or median sales price, but if you do one, just stick with it. For instance, don't go back and forth and do sales price and listing price. It's going to throw your numbers off. But we try to stick with median sales price over here because this is actually saying what people are paying for properties. It's not speculation. It's all numbers that have been proven over the last month of what people are buying properties for. So we are going to go to Redfin here, and we are going to click our address, our zip code, and we are going to go to Market Insights. Wow. And the median sales price is actually 1 million, which that explains why there's only one cash sale. Usually how it works is the higher the median sales price for that particular area, the lower number of cash sales, because investors aren't usually flipping properties that are on golf courses. And typically those homes are taken care of over the course of several years. Now, I'm not saying in some areas, $1 million properties don't need to be fixed up. Some areas in California probably have properties that need to be fixed up. Same way in New York. But for this particular area, I would say the median sales price for all these zip codes is probably around $500K. So $1 million is a little bit over the price that investors will operate in. They usually try to stay in the market where most of the homeowners are buying. So they wouldn't be messing in this $1 million range. In this area right here, this isn't true everywhere, but I would just say in this particular market, that is the case. So I am going to actually put an even 1 million here. And I'm going to also get the number of the days on market. And that's the last thing we're going to input. One other thing to make note of is if you're seeing basically less than, let's say, 20 homes sold, I would take this with a grain of salt, because that's not enough properties. Like 10 properties aren't enough homes sold to give us a good baseline of what's actually happening in this market. So this is a zip code I would automatically disqualify, just because I know the median sales price and the cash sales is just way outside of the median range we're looking for. So this is going to be a zip code that we exclude, but I'm still going to include the information on my sheet. And I'm going to say 10 homes sold. So when I analyze this, I know, okay, the days on market seem really low, 13 days on market. But if you have 10 homes that are sold, that can skew your numbers, because you could have had 5 properties that sold in 2 days, but really they might have been pocket listings. They might have just listed those properties on the MLS just to reflect that they had $1 million listing, but they already had their buyer in place. So as soon as it was listed on the MLS, it was sold, right? So that's how the numbers could basically deceive you, essentially. But like I said, an area that has one cash sale, you're not really going to target. You're going to exclude this area, I would say 10 out of 10 times. So let's go to the next zip code and see if we have some more cash sales here. What I would do at this point is actually save your criteria. So if you want to take a break, you could come back later. So I would save this as cash sales analysis. I already have this saved in here, so I'm just going to do like cash sales analysis 2 R1. And so I'm going to remove this zip code. And what's going to happen after I remove it, it's going to show me all of the properties in List Sources database, meaning all of the United States that fit this criteria. So in the last year, we had roughly 300,000 properties sold for cash that fit this criteria. Now, is that true? Probably not. It's probably way more than that, but there's some dark spots in List Sources data. I don't think it's enough to set off any alarms for you, because you're really using this just to do research and you're not trying to do any in-depth list pulling or anything like that at this particular time right here. So we are going to enter in the other zip code and we are going to click add. Great. So we have more properties that sold for cash. And one other thing to note too, guys, is that when you're in these areas that have a high median list price or median sales price, like 400,000, you're seeing $1 million properties, List Source may not trigger that as a cash sale. Somebody may have used a hard money loan and it may register as a loan. And it may not register as them having 100% equity. So you need to take that in consideration as well. That's something I've seen over the years as I've used List Source, especially in areas like this. So I take that into consideration. However, I should still get a good enough gauge based on how many cash sales I'm getting on where to target and where to focus my marketing dollars. So the next thing we're going to do is go and we are going to find the median sales price for that particular zip code. And we're going to go to Market Insights, and we have a $450,000 median sale price. Days on market is 25. And the number of homes sold is 15. So I like to say anything below about 30, I'll make a note. If it's above 30 homes sold, I won't make a note, but if it's below that, I will, because like I said, this days on market is really low. That's extremely low. And I know this is a competitive market, so a lot of these properties probably already have buyers for them if they're in the middle of renovations or somebody's looking to move from up north to this particular area in California. You just don't know what the situation is and why this days on market is so low. But I would tell you that really, if you're seeing a lot of homes sold, let's just say there's 100, about 45 is the lowest you'll see far as days on market. Anything below that isn't accurate. And I would just take that with a grain of salt. 25 days on market, that's close, but I'd like to see a lot more properties that were sold. So we're going to go back here and we're going to make a note for 15 homes sold. And we're going to go to List Source and we're going to remove our zip code here. And make sure the number resets fully to what it was when you first started the exercise. And you're going to click add. All right, and we're seeing 5 cash sales. Oops. And let's put that zip code here in Redfin and see what comes up. All right, $1.14 million. So I believe that's correct. Yep. And how many days on market? 14. And there are 42 homes sold, so I'm going to leave that blank. I mean, so things are selling pretty quickly here. They are selling pretty quickly. And I could tell you this is a very competitive market here, as far as not just where investors are operating, but also people needing homes. This part of California, really any of the major parts of California, they're going through a housing crisis. And it's very difficult to find housing there that's affordable. I mean, affordable housing is like at the $400,000 price point. And even then, you might still be in a not so great location. So that should give you an indication of this market. So if you're seeing that in your particular market, you might want to wholesale somewhere else, like virtually wholesale. It's not that difficult once you get the hang of it. If you don't have a lot of money to start off with, because you're going to have to compete with some people that are really throwing down a lot of money in these areas, because if they're getting 100, 200 or 300,000 on a rehab or collecting 50K on a wholesale fee, they're going to be putting a lot of money right back into marketing. So I'm not saying you can't compete if you're a little fish in a big pond, but you want to hedge your bets also, and you want to be smart. So I strongly suggest virtually wholesaling if that's something that you think you can do, and if you're willing to just put in a little bit more effort and it's a little bit more of a learning curve. I wish I would have virtually wholesaled a lot sooner than I did. I waited about a year into my investing career to start, and it was one of the best decisions I made. So we are going to go back and we are going to click the next zip code. So I'm going to remove this one. So I hope you guys are getting the hang of it. It gets pretty repetitive. You could just zone out while you're doing this. You can put on some music and just go through the whole exercise yourself. Or like I said, outsource it to a virtual assistant like I do. And we have 14 cash sales here. And let's see what our other statistics are. So 623,000 as a median home value, our median sales price. Days on market are 39. And 19 homes sold, so I'm fine with that. If I saw a days on market that was like 10, I might put that here, but I'm okay with 19 homes sold. That gives me a sort of an accurate picture of what's going on here. And I'm going to do this last zip code here. We have 7 homes sold. And let's see what the stats look like for this particular area. 458,000 as the median sales price. And we have 23 days on market with 26 homes sold. So I like seeing that. And I won't put a note there because I'm seeing more than 20 homes sold. And the days on market doesn't look like it's skewed at all. So things are definitely selling quickly. If I was analyzing this market, I would go through all of these zip codes here, minus the ones that have 0 as a population. And what we do after that, after all of them are listed, we actually find the median values for each stat. So for cash sales, we're going to find the median cash sales. For the median sales price, we're going to find what the median is for all of those. Same thing for the days on market. And this will basically tell us where we should be focusing on. Now, with 5 zip codes, it's pretty easy to tell. So what I'm going to do is actually go to a list that I've actually analyzed. I know a lot of people are in Houston, so hopefully this will help you out. I'm going to go through a list I've analyzed and already went through this exercise. So in Houston, there are how many zip codes here? 170. So you can't really just look at it and determine which ones are good and which ones aren't. So what we actually do is we use a formula to determine which areas we should be focused on, like which zip codes we're going to qualify and which zip codes we're going to stay away from. It might be easy to determine which ones we are, but see, there are some areas here that have a high number of cash sales that we actually aren't targeting. Why is that? Why is that? And the highlighted ones are all the really hot zip codes I identified. So if I was targeting Houston today and I was strapped for cash, these are going to be the areas I target. So why aren't we targeting the areas that have the most cash sales? This is why. This median sales price, for one, is much higher than what our median sales price is. I like seeing median sales prices that are about 10% or 20% over what all of the median sale prices are for that particular area. So we determine that by just using a formula in Google Sheets. And I'll do it over again for you guys to see. So we're just going to do median, and it autofills here. And I'm just going to get all of these sales prices for this column here. I'm going to click Shift, and that's going to highlight the whole column. I'm going to close my parentheses and press Enter. And that gives me 218. So let's do 20% of 218. So 218 plus 218. All right, so the most I would go far as a median sales price is 261. That's the most I would go. And see, this falls outside of this price range. So while there are a lot of cash sales here, this isn't the sweet spot that a lot of investors may be working in, right? So you may have a lot of cash sales here, but listen, it may be 10 investors buying these 265 properties. You don't know, right? But I'm not going to take a risk if I don't have a large budget. I'm just going to not choose that zip code right now. That doesn't mean I'm not going to target it, but I'm going to close some deals up, get some money in the bank. Then I'm going to expand my filter out. And also the days on market here is really high. So what's our days on market? It is 91. This is 126. That's much higher than what I like to see. Really, anything over 100, I automatically exclude. But if you're in an area where the days on market are pretty high, they may be 100, right? That's fine. But in this particular area, and I would say most of the areas in the United States, you need to be looking at a days on market underneath 100. And what I mean by that is this is essentially the time it takes for a property to be listed on the MLS to close, which means it's taken off the MLS at that point. So if your days on market are high, do you think your cash buyers want to target those areas? Absolutely not, because they're looking for areas where they can flip properties, and as soon as they put it on the MLS, boom, the sucker sold. They don't want to be having properties tied up on the MLS for 200, 300 days. That means that's longer that they have to flip houses, make money from the flips, and pay you for more properties on assignment fees. We want to be looking at areas where the days on market is around the median of what all of the zip codes days on market are, or a little bit lower. So here, like we said earlier, it is 91, but really I'm looking at days on market that are around 50. If I'm at that 50 sweet spot, that is amazing. Those are going to be the areas that I'm targeting. So if anything was within 10% to 20% of what my median was, I highlighted it. So my cash sales, 487, 185 median sales price. The lower the sales price, the better. Now, you don't want the median sales price to be like 50 grand because then you might be in the hood. So I'll go down pretty low with the median sales price. But if you're seeing it like being substantially lower than what all of your median sale prices are. So here it is 218. So if you're seeing it around 40K, that's the hood. I wouldn't target there, right? So this area right here, we're not going to target there. Median sales price is 89,000 for cash sales, and things are sitting on the market for 112 days. Not a great area to target. Not a great area to target. This area, median sales price is 175. That's pretty good, right? But we had no cash sales and things were sitting on the market for 147. So in my mind, I already know what type of area that is. That is very rural. Sealy, Texas just sounds like a rural area. I bet you if I put it in Google, it'll probably have a population of less than 10,000 people. See what the population is for Sealy. Look, 6,000 people. On point, right? So doing your analysis tells you a lot about your area, and you can start to pre-screen leads. So say you have a lead that comes out across your desk. and they say, yeah, I got a property over here in Sealy. And you automatically say, nope, no cash sales over there. We're going to pass on that. Right? So just because a lead comes across your desk does not mean it's qualified every time. I've contracted properties and I have not been able to move them just because I was trying to make a deal out of nothing. You want to be going where your cash buyers are. And if you do this exercise, you definitely will be able to determine that. So that's how I would go about this if I was just starting on a budget. So your next steps will be to actually take these zip codes, your top zip codes, and say you have a budget of $1,000. I would pick the top 3 zip codes here, pull like 3,000 leads there, use the criteria that I specified in our list pulling video, and you will pull a very highly super targeted list. So you want to do this right when you start off, guys, because you're basically shooting at the dark if you're just guessing where to target. You don't want to do that, guys. I did that before. I'm telling you, Ethan and I have spent tens of thousands of dollars in marketing, and a lot of that was experimenting and really not knowing what we were doing. So please take my advice. Go through the exercise. It'll take some time, but I guarantee you, you will be on the right track and you will be so happy that you did so once the leads start coming in and once you contract the properties and you're able to move them. So guys, I hope this video was very informative for you. If you have any questions, please post them in the group. We're so happy to see the groups growing. If you know of any investors that can find our group, Wholesaling Houses Future Alliance, helpful, please share it with them. We'll add anybody in it. We just want to help out and provide value to you guys and get you to your first deal, second deal, 100th deal, wherever you are. We're for beginner investors, middle of the pack investors, advanced investors. It doesn't matter what walk of life you're from or where you are in your business. We're just glad to have you. Hope you guys have a great day.